So this is Bradley Cooper's not directorial debut. It's his second film after directing A Star Is Born, about the life and times of conductor, composer, pianist, American icon Leonard Bernstein, who was a very influential composer in the 50s and 60s and into the 70s, really. And the film explores his talent, his rise, but also his relationship with his wife Felicia, played by Carey Mulligan, and kind of the struggles that they had, also with him being a semi open, like either gay or bisexual man. It kind of handles that strangely. It chronicles different big moments in his life. If you don't know, Leonard Bernstein helped revitalize the American musical with the West Side Story and Candide, and he was a prolific composer. Also had TV series kind of before we had things like NPR or Mr. Rogers. He was doing things like that. You still look up these videos of him like teaching the audience about classical music in black and white. Kind of an icon of your parents or your parents' generation. There's a lot to talk about in this film, some controversy surrounding it too. Zach, what did you think?
So I think Maestro is a movie about layers, and like it's a movie about what people see versus like what's really there versus what's maybe hiding just under the surface, right? Like it's a movie about intentions, and like I think Cooper has been kind of a little, hear me out, a little dragged through the mud by people who are like, this is pretentious, this is pompous. Because I think Star is Born has a lot of really, really great work for a directorial feature. It did fantastic. And watching Maestro, at least in the first act, I felt the same way. It feels like Cooper has stepped up his game. We're using huge lenses, right, to get these sweeping crane shots into long pull-ins of thoughtful, long take, Oscar-worthy performances, likely, like Oscar nom maybe. The problem is it's all so damn boring. And boy, it just doesn't it stays in the space of boring for far too long, and you end up checking your watch, and then you check it again, and you check it a third time, and you're like, oh my god, how is this movie still have a half hour left? The story of Leonard Bernstein, I think, is told in a big way. I think it's aimed.
I thought
wrong.
that like a half hour in, I was like, oh my
Dude,
god, there's so much left.
Yeah. Like it really, like, even I should say the first probably first act for epilogue maybe is in like the prologue really is black and white before we kind of shift to color. And I got bored in the black and white part, like, and that's not even half of the film. Like, and I've seen other people saying the same thing. Like, it's an issue of pacing real bad. And he's it's hard not to pin that on Cooper, right? He's the director, of course, as well as the star. He immerses himself in the role of Bernstein. Like he's really been in this. All of the music in the film is Leonard Bernstein, right? You have all of this authentic architecture, locations, places, feelings, conversations. Like all of this has been pulled in, and it's really tremendous. But like it's just aimed off the mark a little bit and ends up being too dry. Andy, I talked way too long about this. What do you think?
I really struggled with it as well, and this movie should be right up my alley. Like I was a classical musician for almost 20 years. I got 3 degrees in classical music performance. This should be my bag, and I could have not been more bored. And the movie just can't decide what it wants to be about. Like it's kind of showing important moments in this person's life, but it doesn't really get into why he's so talented, why he was such kind of an important musician, and why he was such an important icon in American music making. It glosses over those accomplishments. Like literally in dialogue, it said, "Yeah, you wrote West Side Story, and that was incredible, really." And then you wrote this, and it's like, everyone knows West Side Story. Even if you hate musicals, you've heard of West Side Story. They've redone West Side Steven Spielberg just redid it with all that same music that he wrote, and along with lyricists with Stephen Sondheim.
Yeah.
And we don't really get into that of like why he's so good, why he's such an incredible artist. He just kind of is, and it's much more preoccupied with his relationship and kind of sex life. He is married to Felicia, who's an actress, and but he has male callers all throughout. But it handles this so poorly. Like it'll show him like giving a hug to a man, but it never shows those relationships. It never gives those relationships equal weight. Like his relationship with Felicia, they'll have arguments, they'll have intimate moments, they'll talk, but with the men, it handles it real PG-13, and I don't know what it's trying to say. This movie's all over the place. There's huge time jumps. You don't know
Yes.
what year it is. You don't know if it's been 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. It's just like, what are we doing?
Yeah, it genuinely feels like an issue in low-key post-production. It feels like something you might be able to edit around, because editing is important for pacing, and I think this film's biggest problem is its pacing, not only because of these multiple real long take sequences where characters are having very dry conversations, right? They, like Andy said, are very surface because they're not really digging into what's going on. There's a lot of like talking around and speaking in like
Insinuations and
yeah, and it's also a little bit older language. Bernstein has a bit of a flair when he talks, and but I think like I think in another movie you'd shoot it differently with more cutaways, and I think Cooper just opted not to do that. Like, I'm just going to shoot them real simple. I'm going to shoot a oneer of this. This is all we're getting. Maybe they shot more, but it's like I just don't know if he had the coverage to fix it later, and he just couldn't cut back and forth between Carey Mulligan and him. Instead, the camera will bring in on them for 4 minutes while they talk about something. And you're like, this is great. It's like theater. You know, it's good. But like in a 2.5-hour film, like that gets real dry real fast. And this is coming from like the guys that saw Memoria, right? Like I don't know.
yeah. I mean, this movie's nothing but problems. Bradley Cooper, his performance has been talked about a lot. There was some controversy, Nosegate, about him using a prosthetic nose to portray Leonard Bernstein. The problem with that is like most people don't know what he looked like or who he was. Like, he's not famous enough. Like I said, he's an icon of your parents' generation, and most people just don't know. He died in 1990. He's been dead a long time. Like, people just don't really know who this person is or why they're important. And this movie did not give us a good job of why that is. And I'm sure he takes on the mannerisms, and he's sat in the makeup chair for 4 years, or sorry, 4 hours a day before every shoot.
Yeah.
And I just don't care. There's a long sequence of him conducting Mahler 2, I think, towards the end. That's been talked about a lot. That doesn't impress me at all, because he's talked about, it took him 6 years to be able to conduct this, and I was like, sir, what took you so long? Have you tried acting? Like, anyone could like, you could go to school, you'd get a couple of music degrees in that amount of time. There's a point where you're no longer acting and you're just a practitioner. Like, if you film me while I'm playing my musical instrument, I'm not acting, I'm just doing it on camera, and that's essentially what he's doing. Like, I just don't care. It seems like he's just trying so hard to win an Oscar, for acting. It's so try hard, and it doesn't feed the story. It doesn't, like, our narrative is just like all over the place. Like, what is this? I have no idea what this movie's about.
Yeah.
I don't know what is the antagonist. Who is the antagonist? Like, I don't know what the conflict is here, other than he can't be as out about his sexuality as he would like, I guess.
Yeah, it ends up coming off, I think, more of like an abstract observation of a life long lived. But I do want to talk about the positives, like, because there are some here, like, just like Star is Born. Like, I do think this movie is shot really well. I think it's not edited great. Like, it's just there's no cutaways. It doesn't move along in its pace. Like it's the opposite of an action scene that's over edited, right? With 8 cuts in 4 seconds. Like, it's under edited. Like, there's not enough here to move things along. Additionally, yeah, your large time jumps feel irreverent, and people leave the Netflix, wherever they're watching, feeling disconnected and lost. I do think it would have played better on a big theater, though, because, like I said, there's some really incredible shots in here. Like, there's some really great work, fantastic framing. He's got an eye for it. Like, and he's working with his previous cinematographer who shot A Star is Born. I forget the man's name. But big filmography from him, so he's got good partners. I think performances are great. I do. Like, I think Cooper's got this light airiness to him. He ages into Bernstein great. I will admit with Andy, it's a bad prosthetic because it doesn't make it not look like Bradley Cooper at all. Like, he definitely still looks like Bradley Cooper. It's not, there's never a point where I'm like, boy, that's not Bradley Cooper. Maybe I've seen too many movies, but Carey Mulligan, meanwhile, is tremendous. This is her big performance of the year. It reminds me of Anne Hathaway and Eileen, right? Like, in the way that this is the thing that she read and thought, I'm sinking my teeth into this. This is going to be huge. I've only got a bit part in Emerald Fennell's next movie. I got to make this one count. She's great. This is tremendous work. They'll probably both get a nom for it. Like, in any lesser year, they would.
She is acting circles around him. She's doing the heavy lifting because she plays the kind of long-standing, long-suffering wife of the great genius. Like, she takes the brunt of his affairs. She maintains the facade, the family. She also tragically died of cancer, which is portrayed in the film. Like Carey Mulligan's doing an amazing job, and she's not wearing a ridiculous prosthetic. She's not conducting an orchestra, because that's not what great performances are about. She's great in this movie. This movie's almost more about her.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I do want to reiterate, A, the music's tremendous. And B, like, I really do think for what's here, like, I think Cooper left it all on the field. But what I think he left there is just not exactly what people want. I think in his mind, this like 2.5 hour, like, thoughtful piece on this, like, life and times of this person, like, I think he could watch this to, you know, five times a week if he wanted. Like, this is really great art. Like, and in that way, like, he made it for himself, and I think that's what every good artist should do. You should make art for you, you know, and then if other people come along and like it, that's where that intimate connection springs from. Like, and I believe that. I think this is Bradley Cooper's Maestro 110%. Like, I just think it's too disconnected from, like, the language most of us kind of speak cinema through, right? Like, it's too slow, it's too disparate, it's too unintentional in its direction, like, in its narrative direction, I should say. Like, it just misses a couple of points so finely that it ends up being a big blunder. It's like an Olympic runner tripping over the first hurdle. Like, you're just like, oh my god, like, you trained, you have all of the, and it's the opposite for him because he hasn't trained that much, but it just feels like it's got so much grandeur and it's so large, it ends up feeling miscommunicated to me. That was the vibe I got. Hopefully that, I don't know. Yeah, Andy?
No, yeah, I wasn't sure what he was attempting to communicate. I'm not real sure where his character ends up by the end of the movie. It's kind of, again, it seems a little aimless. I wanted to also mention that Maya Hawke is in here as one of Bernstein's children. She might be Nepo Baby Prime because she shows up in everything and just kind of plays herself. She was in this year's Asteroid City. I think actually probably more memorable in that movie than this one.
Yeah, and I think she blends in a little better as the school teacher who falls for the singing cowboy in the play. Yeah, Maya Hawke, like, she shows up in this movie, and I definitely leaned up in my chair. Is that Maya Hawke? And then the whole rest of the movie, I thought, that sure is Maya Hawke. She's doing great. Like, they got to give her a different haircut or something. Like, she just looks like, yeah, she's right in the spot. She ends up looking the same in every movie. It's like, oh, Maya, baby, you gotta break out. But
yeah, I did want to mention
things are going on. Yeah.
Sarah Silverman, the comedian, is also in this, not in a comedic role. She actually has a very serious acting part, and I was really surprised by that because she's great. She's unrecognizable both in her appearance and just her mannerisms, and
right.
It's a surprisingly good performance.
Yes.
I think that's all I have.
I know. I think I'm running out of steam too. One more thing I will say, just like any of these big Netflix features, like, I wish I could have seen this in a movie theater. I know that would have been a bit more disparate, but I think the visuals are really strong. Watching it at home just doesn't quite put you over. Like, I think that would have helped the experience. I wish Netflix was more engaged in that. They don't seem to really want to invest in theatrical screenings. They just kind of do them liminally. So catch them when you can. Yeah, the next time something big from Netflix comes down the pipe, even if you're not sure about it, I guess try to go see it in a theater if possible. I wish I'd seen this there. Andy, what did you think of Maestro? Sorry, would you recommend Maestro? It's been quite the episode.
Man, this is the hardest of passes for me. Like, I'm a musician. I'm a classically trained musician. Like, my teacher knew Leonard Bernstein and actually like he played on like Bernstein's Mass and like knew him personally, and like I could not get into this movie at all. The performance is whatever. He's trying so hard to win this Oscar, and he doesn't do anything that deserves it. Carey Mulligan is so much better than he is in this. The narrative is all over the place. I don't know what it's trying to say about him, about music and art. It's aimless. It feels so long. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes. It's not super long, but it just feels like it goes on forever. It does a lot of really kind of interesting artistic shots, ways of different things that are shot, but it's just overshadowed by the story just going nowhere.
It's funny, like you mentioned the runtime because yeah, you're right. I thought it was longer, but Iron Claw is nearly the same. I think Iron Claw is actually a couple minutes longer, and it again pays so much better. Like just moves right through. You rarely ever get bored. Like it moves fantastic. Maestro ends up being a slog. Like it's not bad. It's really not. I don't think Maestro is a bad film, but I think it's perfect for the disappointment category. It just doesn't quite get where you need it to be. I still think it'll probably get nominated for Oscars. I don't know what it'll win. I've seen people saying Cooper's going to scoop the Oscar over Cillian Murphy. I would be surprised. I don't know who's going to get it, but like I think Carey Mulligan might sneak one. This would be her multiple for her. I think she already has one, maybe two. But overall, Maestro is an interesting character work. Just not quite where I needed it to be.
The other thing I'll say about Oscar stuff is like the Oscars are about what have you done for the industry, what have you done for me lately, and a movie that comes out on Netflix is generally not as well received as something that came out and was a big theatrical hit.
Well, God, that's the last episode of the year, Andy. I would say, what are we watching next week? But we're taking it off. We're getting ourselves together. When are we back?
Yeah, right. So there's a couple of weeks of not really anything coming out, so I would encourage people to catch up on anything you haven't seen. There's a whole lot of movies out. The next big releases that we'll be covering are Mean Girls and The Book of Clarence, which both come out on January 12th. So that show won't be till 16th. But before then, we will be returning on January 9th, and we're going to cover The Color Purple and Ferrari and anything else we might see in between. So we'll be taking next week off, back in a couple of weeks with just trying to catch up with everything that's come out this year. Still have to see The Zone of Interest, which is a Holocaust drama, which probably isn't out until like February, but that's something else. So, but next week, taking off, and then back with Ferrari and Color Purple.
Like I saw that the loose translation for Zone of Interest in China was Dream Concentration Camp, which is like rad. Yeah, no, would love to see Zone of Interest. We'll cover it when it comes out. Meanwhile, I've been hearing good things about Ferrari, Michael Mann's Ferrari, mostly that it's a Michael Mann feature and that it actually has a bit more juice than appears, which is good. Big performances from Adam Driver and Penelope Cruz. Also, I'm looking forward to Color Purple. Like not only because of what I said previous, but because of the box office. I mean, look at it. Like it's doing well. People are talking. Scott word of mouth. It's moving. All right, I want to go see it. It's gonna be good stuff. And we'll see about Mean Girls. I don't know. Book of Clarence looks fun. Mean Girls probably fun. Anyway, if you enjoyed the show today, if you spent any second of just a little bit of 2023 with us, listening to us ramble about movies. If you enjoyed the top 10 of the year, maybe had some feelings on our disappointments, honorable mentions, right? Worst of the year. The best way to correspond with us is you can email us at mail@offscriptfilmreview.com. Email, you say, but I listen to podcasts. I do social media stuff. Well, of course, we're in all the usual social media places. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're around. You can comment over there. You can follow. You can subscribe. You can also subscribe on YouTube, where really big things are happening for your off-script boys. I'm not kidding. Big things going on over at YouTube. We're hitting milestones. We're checking boxes. All right, big things going on. Come check us out over there. We're on all the usual podcast outlets, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartMedia. You can find us there and follow. You might be listening there right now. You can also leave a rating and review. If you have a second on your way out, right, just swing by that app store, hit 5 stars. We really appreciate it. App store, review store, wherever you review your, I got to dismount. Anyway, it's been a great year for movies in 2023, and we have really enjoyed spending it with y'all. So from all of us at Offscript, the home of bold cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.